After a week off from breaking down different Buckeye players that will be drafted in this upcoming NFL draft, we are back breaking down three offensive linemen, Paris Johnson Jr., Dawand Jones, and Luke Whippler. What kind of prospects are they? Where will they land in the draft? We'll answer both of those questions and a whole lot more during this episode of Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Thursday, April 20th in the year 2023. And during this episode, we welcome back with us Ryan Roberts from Rides and Draft Scouting. He is my favorite NFL draft scout and analyst out there. He's been with us breaking down C.J. Stroud, the quarterback, the receiver, Jackson Smith-Njigba. And today he's back to let us know what kind of pro prospects Paris Johnson Jr., Dawand Jones, and Luke Whippler are. He's also coming off a long trip to Disney World. I believe it was Disney World, not Disneyland. I'm glad he's back with us here today. Ryan Roberts, how was the trip, man? Welcome back.
It was good, man. It was good. It was. It's been a busy month of April, Jay. I'm going to be out in South Bend for the spring game this weekend. I'll be leaving on Friday. I just got a week off in Disney, and the NFL draft's 8 days away from where this show is live, right? So it's gonna be busy, man. But I'm enjoying everything, brother. I hope everything's good for you back there as well.
Yes, sir. Things are going well, and it is a busy time of year. The NFL draft is right around the corner. And you and I have done numerous shows together breaking down Buckeyes over the past few drafts. This year's class might be the smallest, Ryan, that you and I have discussed as far as, I think, the 2021 draft, 2022 draft, 2023 draft. As far as the Buckeye class, this might be the smallest. However, I think this might be the most offensive linemen you and I have talked about in one show going into a draft. I don't know exactly, so you guys are like, oh, no, there were three. Forgive me. There's been a lot going on. But this class, man, Paris Johnson Jr., Dawand Jones, Luke Whippler, 2 tackles and a center. This is a really talented group of Buckeyes offensive linemen that will be drafted next week.
And I'm really excited, especially about 2 of them, Jay. I mean, I'm pretty high on 2 out of 3 of them, and we'll discuss, obviously, the third in this show. But, man, it's a far cry from the Nicholas Petit-Frere and Thayer Munford draft class because, I was very low at both of those players. So I really do like, and I know we talked about this before, but I do like what Justin Frye is doing with that offensive line. I thought that he really did unlock a lot of potential in the offensive tackles this year. Obviously, Luke Whippler going from a guy that was kind of forced into action as a redshirt freshman to being the guy as a redshirt sophomore, obviously with the Harry Miller situation, as a redshirt freshman. Really thought he grew in his first year under Justin Frye as well. So I like the future of Ohio State's offensive line as long as they keep kind of, recouping the talent and keep putting talent in that room, because I think Justin Frye is one of the best in the business as far as developing offensive linemen.
Before I go any further, Ryan, you mentioned Harry Miller, and over the weekend, as Ohio State had their spring game last Saturday, my fiance and I were walking to Ohio Stadium, and right to the right of us, both of us, it's Harry Miller running on the sidewalk. We get to the stadium during the warm-ups. It's Harry Miller there with the offensive line and Justin Frye. And so for all of the things that Harry Miller went through mentally and getting help and aid from Ryan Day in areas that he needed to, I love the help he got from Ohio State, but I also like seeing him continue to be around the football team. And I think, honestly, that helped some of the guys that we're going to talk about, possibly all 3 of them, knowing that this guy has he was a teammate of all 3 of these guys, had some mental health issues, got help with Ryan Day, and he's still around the team and helping the team be better. I'm actually really happy for Harry Miller and what he's going through now. Really got a lot of criticism for his time at Ohio State playing football, but due to after some mental health battles that he got through, it's probably still getting over some of them, he is still around the Buckeye football team, and I'm glad that he's doing well after a really, really, really rough time he had with some mental things he was dealing with, Ryan. So I wanted to get that out there. I don't know if you have any comments about him, but mental health battles are real, and I'm glad he is. He's got the help from Ryan Day in the Ohio State Athletic Department to help him in that way.
No, I think it's really well said, and I think that's why college programs now are really, I think most of them are investing in the help for the mental health side of things. I mean, like there's psychologists that are being hired by colleges. There's just professionals that are that's their area of expertise. So yeah, man, I feel like this is the bad part of this whole thing, right, Jay, is that we watch on every Saturday and we just know these guys by their name and their number, right? But you don't really know what each one of them going through, Like, I mean, I remember the quarterback, Ryan Helinski from Washington State that committed suicide. Like, that was just like a sudden thing, and no one had any inkling that was going to happen, right? Because it's just like you don't take the time to really understand the situation and the stressors that each one of these players are going through. Because like Harry, did have his struggles on the field, right?
Yeah.
And like you don't sit back and just think for a second, like it's a lot of stress on him trying to be his best version of himself every day at some place like the Ohio State University, right? Like it's tough though, man. But I really do think that there's a lot more advocates out there for the mental health side of things, or psychologists that are being, hired by teams or specialists. Like I really think that there is a movement to be able to help more, and it's a good thing. But I mean, to your point, man, it's good to see those types of guys be able to come back and still feel like they're part of something, even after they had to retire early for certain circumstances.
Paris Johnson Jr. was a part of something at Ohio State, which is a really good offensive line. Many people out there, and Ryan, you can go over your list here in a little bit as far as like where he ranks as far as best offensive tackle prospects in the draft. I have seen him some places be 1. I've seen him be 2. Rarely will you see him be the 3rd best offensive tackle in this year's draft. Some are saying he might go to the Chicago Bears or might go to the Tennessee Titans, 9 or 11 respectively in the upcoming draft. Paris Johnson Jr., 6'6". I believe he weighed in at 315 pounds, long arms, quick feet. He's a really talented guy. And Ryan, I think I remember correctly, you on your podcast discuss Paris Johnson Jr., the tackle, and just discussed about how much you like him and you like what he can be in the NFL.
Yeah, I think he is the cleanest, or let me rephrase. I think he's the clearest pathway to being a star left tackle on the next level, Jay. Like we'll talk, I'm sure, a little bit about Peter Skoronski from Northwestern on this podcast. And like there's a great debate from Peter's side of, is he a pure offensive tackle? Is he better inside a guard? Like what is his long-term future as far as positionally? Even though I really love the player, Paris Johnson Jr. for me, like he has it's an easy baseline to being a left tackle on the NFL level, though. Like, there's no debate that he's an offensive tackle. He's 6'6" and 3/8, so right around 6'6.5", 313 pounds. He weighed in at the combine, 36 and an 1/8 inch arms. 2 of only 5 players, I think, historically to have 36 plus inch arms at the combine as well. Joining, of course, Dawand Jones in that regard. I mean, everybody knew he was going to be this kind of guy, right? Like you saw his highlight tape coming out of high school. He had that little cut up video that went viral on Twitter that one time where he was just beating the snot out of some kid from like every single snap. It's just like, you knew Paris Johnson was going to be this guy. It was just, you hadn't seen him at left tackle coming into this year, right? Like he was starting at guard the previous year because he was just too good not to be on the field. But they had Nicholas Petit-Frere, who was a incumbent at left tackle, a multi-year starter. So finding a place for Paris, was needed. But then you saw him at his natural position at left tackle this year. I thought he just looked so much better than what he looked at a guard.
Yeah.
Like he was a good guard for Ohio State. I think he's a really good offensive tackle prospect because he has that just body type perspective. He's got the foot quickness. He's got the understanding of angles playing offensive tackle that I think is pretty special. And the great part about him is that he's only 21 years old. He's still a kid that developmentally, he's not there yet. He's a 1-year starter at left tackle in college. He can still get a whole lot better, which is very impressive, very intriguing. So I think he has the makings of a Pro Bowl left tackle at the next level. And I think it's one of the easiest transitions just because he has every trait. There's no question of length, athleticism, no questions at all. He's got all the tools to be very good.
So I hear you mentioned Peter Skoronski, and I want to go there next with you. And I believe the other tackle that's in the top three of most people is Broderick Jones, tackle from Georgia. All three of those guys bring something to the table, and I've heard people discuss, and I think you have mentioned this prior to recording different shows we have done. That Skoronski, you don't know if he's a guard or a tackle at the next level. Some are saying tackle, some are saying guard, but some are saying he's better at guard, but he might get drafted as a tackle, and there's that back and forth. I think the benefit for Paris Johnson Jr. over Skoronski is that you know what his position is. You know what he does well. You know what his strengths are. You know what his weaknesses are. You know the better, the run scheme that fits him best versus another. You know the pass protection that he provides. Like, you know what you're getting with him. Whereas with Skoronski, there are question marks simply about the position that he's best fit to play at the next level. And so if those guys were even in skill set, but even Skoronski I don't know what he is as a player position-wise, but Paris Johnson Jr., I know what that guy is. I know position he should play. I think that alone is a good reason to put Paris Johnson Jr. above Skoronski if I'm trying to rank them and say which one is higher on, or which one's one, which one's two. Yeah, I think it's solid, though. Like, he's coming in saying, I know what I am. You know what I am. You know what position I need to play. Make me better. Make me fit what you guys want from a star offensive tackle. That's a huge benefit, Ryan, for Paris Johnson Jr. at this point in time.
I mean, it is. It 100% is, because, I mean, you hit the hierarchy there. I feel like Peter Skoronski and Paris Johnson Jr. are the two that are kind of coupled together. And Broderick Jones is really talented. He's kind of a ball of clay, man. Like, he can be as good as the coaching staff that he's kind of brought into. But I think that he is viewed as the clear third guy. And that clear third guy is still going to go top 20. Like, he's still going to go very high, right? But Parrish, I think that you hit on it perfectly. And there's going to be some NFL teams that have Peter Skoronski as an offensive tackle. There's going to be some that have him just strictly as an interior offensive lineman. And there's going to be some that have the notion of, and this is what I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles at pick 10 are going to kind of view Peter Skoronski. They're going to say, we think he could be an offensive tackle, but at worst, he fills a spot at right guard for us right now, right? So he's a right guard, and then maybe he's the heir apparent to a Lane Johnson at offensive tackle down the line if he's developed properly. I personally do think he could play offensive tackle. I really do, because I think that he has overcompensating traits as far as from a technical prowess perspective. I think he's a really nice athlete for the position. So I think despite not having the arm length, I mean, he has like 32.25-inch arms. It's historically small, short arms for an offensive tackle. But I think that he can overcompensate in other areas. So I do actually like Peter Skoronski as offensive tackle. But to your point, there's going to be some NFL teams that won't even entertain him being an offensive tackle on the board. They just won't entertain it. They'll look at the arm length. They'll be like, that doesn't translate to the NFL. And I understand that, because historically, it doesn't translate to the NFL. They're not wrong about that, right? Now, it doesn't mean that every player is a part of the rule. There are exceptions to the rule always, but there are going to be some teams that don't even look further into it. They're just going to have that assumption in mind. So for a team that needs an offensive tackle, and let's be honest, offensive tackles are much more valuable than offensive guards. It's just the world we live in, just always what it's going to be. So if you're always going to prefer an offensive tackle, or you're a team that just needs an offensive tackle, needs it, I'm going to defer more often than not to Paris Johnson Jr. because there's no question, right? Like, there's no inkling in my mind. There's no hesitation. Can Paris Johnson play offensive tackle? It's a quick yes. Like, there's no hesitation there. For Skoronski, it's, I think so, but, and then we have the deeper conversation. So to your point, yes, he's a much cleaner projection offensive tackle. There's no question that Paris Johnson could play that position on the next level.
Ryan, what team would be the best fit for Paris Johnson Jr. in the draft? And I'm going to stop myself from handing it over to you for a second, because I mentioned two teams, the Bears and the Titans, number 9, number 11 in the upcoming draft. Listeners and viewers of Locked On Buckeyes, we got a good breakdown from Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans and Lauren Cox of Locked On Bears about what they view and how they view from those teams' perspectives, Paris Johnson Jr. Both those teams could get him. Like, realistically, there's a good shot that number 9, the Bears don't select him. I don't know who has number 10, but I don't think they're going to draft Paris Johnson Jr., so he's available to the Titans as well. But what team provides the best fit for him in the upcoming draft?
Man, it's such a it's such a loaded question, Jay, because I think there's a few teams that could need an offensive tackle to that caliber, right? I mean, you hit on a couple. I mean, the Chicago Bears is like the cleanest one, right? Because you're just like, they for sure need a right tackle. And depending on how they feel about, the Braxton Jones, who was a 6th-round rookie last year, like they might need a left tackle down the line as well. So that's a clean one. Tennessee Titans, like you said, I mean, you just cut Taylor Lewan. You needed a right tackle anyway. Like they need both tackles kind of fill. I think the Philadelphia Eagles is a sneaky team that not a lot of people talk about because they don't need an offensive tackle in 2023 because they have Lane Johnson. They have Jordan Mailata. But Lane Johnson is getting old in the tooth, man. He's getting very old, and they have a clear need at right guard. So if you say, Peter Skoronski or Paris Johnson, I'm going to stick you at right guard for a year, and then if Lane retires, then I'm going to kick you out to right tackle. That could be a projection. But I honestly, man, I think the conversation piece, though, of legitimacy starts at pick 7, with the Las Vegas Raiders. Like, I think that is a team that quietly we're not talking about in the offensive tackle conversation because their roster is just so bad. Like it just has so many needs. But I mean, they have Jermaine Eleanor, or however you pronounce his name, starting at right tackle right now. Like you can upgrade that guy easily, right? Like Colton Miller's a really good left tackle. You don't need a left tackle in that conversation, but their offensive line is not very good. So offensive line for the Raiders, Atlanta Falcons, I think it's a conversation piece because like Caleb McGarry's up and down at right tackle. Sam Baker's super old at left tackle now. Like, do we want to get the heir apparent there? I think that's a conversation. Chicago Bears at 9, Tennessee Titans at 11. Like, I'm not trying to skate around the questions, but Philadelphia Eagles at 10, like 7 to 11, there is massive needs at offensive tackle and then everywhere beyond that. I mean, then you can start getting into the New England Patriots conversation of like, they need offensive tackles at some point too. So I think the answer is starts at 7, ends probably at somewhere in 15. That's the range I think for both Skoronski and Paris Johnson to come off the board because there is massive needs at offensive tackle and offensive line in general in that bucket of teams.
Massive. That's a word that people may use to describe Dawand Jones. They might have just say massive human being, massive gentleman, massive man. I don't know, man. Just trying to put stuff together. Dawand Jones, 6'8". Ryan, I believe he weighed in 375 at the combine, 374 at the – no, excuse me. Let's backtrack. Yeah. 375 at the senior day, 374 at the combine, did not weigh in at the senior day. And I had not gone in depth about the decision that I mentioned after the pro day when I said him not weighing in. He made a decision at the pro day that was a little weird that could change and alter the way people view him.
Yep.
Didn't weigh in, man. Like, I think he's a really good player. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to start this off by being negative. I apologize. Dawand Jones is a really good football player. I will not say that he's not a good football player. He's good at what he does. Mm-hmm. Does his game translate to the next level? That's a question that I have, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Ryan, with that question. Does Dawand Jones's game translate to the NFL?
In a vacuum, it does. Yes, because I mean, look, we're talking about a rare player here. In the instance that you just haven't historically seen many guys this size profile, right? Like he's 6'8" and 2/8, so 6'8" and a quarter, 374, like you said, 11 and 5/8 inch hands, which is just nutty, 36 and 3/8 inch arms, never seen a wingspan like this, 87 and 7/8, so an 88 inch wingspan, which is just wildly absurd to think about, man. When you start talking about comps, Jay, the only guys you can come up with are Trent Brown, Mekhi Becton, and then Bryant McKinney, if you want to add 10, 20 pounds to Bryant McKinney. Like, that's the only players that historically are even in the realm of what Dawand Jones is. And I will say this, 2021 to 2022, vastly improved.
Yeah.
So much so.
Yeah.
Like, a different player in 2022 than he was in 2021. I didn't like 2021 film. I liked a lot of what I saw in 2022. I think he has good foot quickness for his size, and he's just one of those dudes that's just so massive. As long as he maintains good posture and good consistency to the line of scrimmage, he's a hard guy to get around, man, with that combination of size, length, and foot quickness. Now, there are some downsides to his size, though. Like, that's the great part of his size, that he's hard to get around because he's 375 pounds. The tough part, though, is that he doesn't bend very well, right? Like, he's a little stiff because He's 6'8 plus and he's 375 pounds. Like that's pretty basic, pretty basic physics, right? Like he's a big guy. It's going to be hard for him to get his butt down a little bit lower. So I think there is going to be some problems with him moving to the next level of these super bendy outside track rushers that put him into chaos, right? They put him into a bad body posture and he's not able to bend down and to counteract power or the ability to transition outside track with speed. I think that he's going to have trouble with that. But I think he can still do it because I have seen some guys do that, right? Like Trent Brown's a guy I mentioned. Rob Havenstein coming out of Wisconsin. He's a guy that lost weight coming into the NFL, but he was another guy of similar, didn't bend very well, but just a massive dude to get around. Like this can play in the NFL. My hesitation with him, man, is I just don't know how committed he is to football. And that's just kind of where I come back to. And it's you mentioned the weights, right? Before the season, I was so excited because I'm like, Dawand Jones is down 350 pounds. That's awesome, man. That's dope. Because I was on this podcast with you last year where I said, I think Dawand Jones needs to trim down a little bit, right? Like he's got a little bit too much bad weight on his frame. Awesome. And I think he did trim down because he looked better this year. I think that those things match. Then he goes to the Senior Bowl, has one dominant day at the Senior Bowl. But he's back up to 375 pounds, 374 pounds. Why? Why is my question. Like, why, Dawand? Why are you that heavy? But either way, he had a good first day, leaves, done after first day. Cool. Doesn't tell anyone, though, which is kind of a weird little side thing. Like, he had media availability the next day, and he just wasn't there. The podium was still up. It was odd, right? But then he goes to the combine. Same weights. I'm just like, why are you still that heavy? Like, why did you gain 25 pounds coming into this? This is a job interview. Like, this is a job interview process. There's multiple steps in this process. It's like having a second interview. Still heavy. Pro day happens. Talked about this. Doesn't weigh in. I know from someone that was there, was told that they said, Dawand Jones opts not to weigh in. No weights. And there was a NFL head coach there that said, he decided that? Like abruptly in like this crowd of like, by decision, his decision. So now teams are like, why are you gaining weight like this right now, man? Why are you ballooning back? And there's just some conversations that I have with him or behind the scenes of like, I struggle if he truly loves the game of football.
Yeah.
And I know some people are going to fight back and push back. And like, I get it, man. Trust me, I get it, guys. But at the end of the day, man, actions speak a whole lot louder than words. And those are the actions that we are looking at right now. It would be tough for me to bet on Dawand Jones currently. It would be. This is one of those conversations where an NFL team has to be really solid with their feelings of Dawand Jones, the person, before betting on the football player. So I still think he's going to go pretty high in the draft. I still think he's a clear day 2 football player. But the first round mock drafts that I see with his name in there, I think that's a little ludicrous. I don't think he's going to go in the first round. I don't. Because I think that there are some questions from a work ethic perspective and just how bad he wants this. I do think that those questions are out there.
So, Ryan, a couple things there. And I hate to go back to stuff off the field. I think football player-wise, he got better. There was a report prior to the season that he lost 30 pounds.
Yeah.
Nobody ever knew what his starting weight was. I'm just being honest with you. He's always been listed as 6'8", 360 the entire time. Stepping on campus, final year, 6'8", 360. So what if he was 400 pounds and dropped down to 370? But they never changed that in the roster. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. But I understand the thoughts. I understand the analysis. And I understand why you think the way you do. And ultimately, I think there's a reason why NFL teams will think what they do about Dawand Jones. And the Chicago Bears brought him in for a top 30 visit, which I think that was smart. I don't know if the Bears are definitely not going to draft him at number 9. The Bears have a second-round pick.
Yeah.
They can pick him if they want to. But if you're going to choose a top 30 visit for someone and you have questions about a guy's medicals and physical attributes, and you want to bring him in to run your own medical testing on him, I think it's really, really smart, a good use of your time. At the same time, though, you're saying day 2. Are you thinking round 2 or round 3 for Dawand Jones?
I think round 2, someone will take the plunge.
Okay.
I think someone will take the gamble. I do because, again, man, I mean, at the end of the day, it only takes one team to be like, he answered the questions well enough for me to be comfortable with him, right? Like, it only takes one. It really does. And back to the positives of this, Jay, is a rare dude from a size perspective. We just haven't seen many guys like him.
Right.
6'8" and a half. 374 pounds with a near 88-inch wingspan, man. Those are the facts, man. And he had good film in 2022. So you look at that and you say, that guy's rare. And, it's one of those situations where I'm going to take a plunge on a second rounder with rare traits, even if I'm a little unsettled in some areas because there aren't many humans in the world historically that have walked around that have looked like Dawand Jones. That's just the fact that we're working with right now.
Guys, we have one more player to go, but we're out of time for today's show. We'll have to come back and put this together to discuss Luke Wypler, the football player, why Ryan loves him, and where Ryan thinks he might fall in the upcoming NFL draft. Ryan, if you could let everyone know where they can follow you on Twitter, follow the website, see what all the good stuff, draft stuff is going. And if Buckeye fans want an early look at Notre Dame, the third team Ohio State plays in the upcoming season, Ryan, where can they check them out as well?
Yeah, everything is very cohesive. Rise and Draft on Twitter, Rise, the letter N Draft, and then riseindraft.com. You can find a prospect database, mock draft simulator, all that great stuff. And then I'll be having a bunch of NFL draft tidbits on Twitter that, you hopefully will like kind of moving forward. But we're only 8 days away from the draft, so there's going to be a lot of instant analysis at Believe Podcast Network. As me and Joe DeLeon will be doing some instant reactions to every single pick. So if you're Ohio State Buckeyes, when they come off the board, I'm sure we'll be talking about it for sure. So make sure to stay tuned in there. And then, Notre Dame has a big game against Ohio State this year. So irishbreakdown.com, if you want kind of an early glimpse into what Notre Dame is going to be putting on the field, make sure to come, check it out. And, we'll get a little bit early feeling of how that game might go in, what's that, an October game this year? Yeah,
we'll
say October.
I think October, September, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Guys, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send all of your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. Love having Ryan on. Ryan and I talked so much. He was gone for weeks. He had a lot to say during the show. You got to come back to hear more about what Ryan thinks about Luke Wypler, why he's high on him, gave you a little early side about that, and where Wypler might fall in the upcoming NFL draft. We're out of here on a Thursday. Have a great day.